Hello, everyone, and welcome to Assessing Skills with CTDL Rubrics. I am Jeannie Kitchens, Chief Technology Services Officer with Credential Engine. I am joined today by my colleagues who will be co-presenting today, Julia Genualis, Mike Parsons, Nate Argo, and Sneha Adula. Behind the scenes, we have a couple of other colleagues, including Ariel Bly, who will be sharing links in the chat. For those of you who may not be familiar with Credential Engine, we like to share our mission. And for those of you who are, we like to reinforce it. As a nonprofit organization, our mission is to map the credential landscape with clear and consistent information. We want to empower people to find the pathways that are best for them. And to support our mission, among the things that we do, we have our technologies, including the CTDL and the Credential Registry, and we're going to be talking about both of those today. Today, we're going to focus on CTDL rubrics. I'm going to provide an introduction to how the CTDL was expanded to include rubric definitions. Then we're going to talk about what that looks like in the CTDL, how rubrics can be described using CTDL. And then we're going to take a look at what has been implemented with the Credential Registry publishing system. We will have Nate talk about consuming rubric data. Mike Parsons will talk about a little bit about API publishing, and Julia is going to provide us a demonstration of a rubric upload. All along the way, please say hello in the chat to everyone. Please let us know in the chat if you have any questions. We'll try to allow time for Q&A as we pause at the end of each section, but stay muted because we are recording. And if you can raise your hand at the end of each section, if you'd like to ask a question, then you can unmute and we'll be happy to answer your questions. Again, for those of you who may be new to Credential Engine and those who have been around, a little bit of a reminder here regarding the Credential Engine technologies. All of our work is grounded in the Credential Transparency Description Language, or CTDL as we call it. Today we're going to be talking squarely about rubrics and how the CTDL was expanded to be able to describe rubrics. We manage an entire suite of publishing tools. We have a number of tools that are available for anyone to use. Anyone can set up their Credential Engine account and use any of our publishing tools. And today we're going to talk about and show how to publish rubrics. And of course, this data goes to the Credential Registry, which is intended as a long-term data store that links CTDL resources together. And that registry is for other systems, tools, and so forth to consume that data. The CTDL is a large living language. We're always working on the CTDL. As a matter of fact, we're getting ready to convene a task group to work on expanding outcome metrics definitions. It's composed of 3 schemas that are all integrated together. And on the right side of the screen, you can see this picture here. And each one of the circles in the picture represents a CTDL class. And the arrows are meant to notionally communicate that the whole idea of the CTDL is to link this data together. So you can see the CTDL covers a lot of information that is about linking learning to working. So you could see you could even describe jobs in the CTDL. But today we are going to be talking about rubrics, and we'll talk a little bit about other classes here in the CTDL that can link to rubrics. And it's important for everyone to know that the CTDL is available for anyone to use under a Creative Commons license. We have a technical site where you can get all the information you want for your teams to use the CTDL. And there's no membership required. There's no login required. It's all open information. And you can use CTDL in many different ways, whether you're developing a product, whether you're looking to organize a new project, designing a software system, learner and employment records, and many, many more examples. So let me go ahead and talk a little bit about how the CTDL was expanded to include rubrics. So the CTDL rubrics, and I want to point out a couple of things on this slide here, that the CTDL data model is for making the information both human and machine readable. And I'm going to show you some examples of that today. And the technical team is going to talk just a little bit. We know this is not a technical audience, so they're just going to provide an overview about consuming the data. But to make sure everybody knows what a rubric is, the CTDL rubrics can be used not only for assessing a person's skills, but also for assessing organizational capabilities and gauging the quality or suitability of products, services, and more. So when we added the terms for describing rubrics, we did them in a way so rubrics can be described that are for assessing people, but for other things as well. And the CTDL, using the CTDL for rubrics and many other classes that you saw in that prior slide, is beneficial to everyone. The CTDL is a common language, and that fosters interoperability and data consistency. In the case of rubrics, we can link rubrics across CTDL classes, and I'll show a little picture of that in a little bit. And we can link them to competencies. And of course, with CTDL linked open data structure, it means it can be interoperable and promote transparency and efficiency. So when we're adding CTDL terms, we have a process to do that. And our process begins with forming a task group. And you can see over here on the left, some of the things that a task group does. Once a task group has completed their work, and this is a group of subject matter experts who come together and identify use cases and help create the data model and terms, then we go into a public comment period. And after the comment period, the Credential Engine team actually implements everything that came out of that task group. And this process is really important. We want to make sure that the CTDL expansion is durable and offers persistent value. So we do follow this policy. And as I said, we do have a task group that is coming up. And if you're interested in joining it, we would welcome you to do so. When the rubric task group was formed, they began by creating a charter. And you can see that was back in June of 2023. And in that charter, they identified what they will do, and the focus of the work on rubrics. And they keyed into that work. The charter was accepted in June of 2023. And this is what came out of it. The rubrics task group held 6 meetings, concluding in August. And you can see it was composed of 42 subject matter experts. They approved the charter. They documented and developed rubric use cases and examples, created the model, created examples, code examples, and then all that led to having the terms proposal that was implemented that resulted in what you're going to see today. So we like people to know that there is a process, the process gets followed. And when we hold these task groups, they're incredibly worthwhile, time-limited participation groups that result in a lot that gets accomplished. So all of this was accomplished with this task group. And then as a follow-up to that, by September of last year, the CTDL team had also done additional work. We implemented and added all the rubric terms to the CTDL. we updated the CTDL handbook, we updated the registry minimum data policy. And now it's been implemented so you can also publish rubric data to the Credential Registry. So let's take a look at what that means, what a rubric looks like. And before I do that, let me just check the chat and see if anybody has any questions so far. Will you send out information? We always send out information, and the rubric task group is concluded, but there is a new task group and someone can share that link in the chat, and that one is for outcome employment, education and employment outcome metrics. So let's take a look at the CTDL rubrics terms. And I'm going to show you some examples of rubrics, but we're going to start off by looking at the 4 key rubric classes that were added to the CTDL. That includes a rubric, a structured and systematic evaluation tool used to assess performance, quality, and/or criteria. That is the CTDL definition of a rubric. A rubric criterion, a resource providing explicit criteria for ensuring specific and measurable evaluation. Criterion level, here in the middle. An individual component or specific element with a criterion that defines a particular aspect or standard for evaluation. And finally, the rubric level over here on the right, a level or quality indicator used with rubric criteria. So you can see in this diagram here on the right that a rubric has criterion, a rubric can have levels, and the criterion and the rubric levels can have a criterion level. And we're going to take a look at what that actually means and looks like with some real rubric examples. Before we delve into those examples, just one more bit of important information here with this diagram. And that is that there are several additional CTDL classes. I have them listed here, and you can see them in the diagram that can link to rubrics. So a credential can have a rubric. A course can have a rubric, a job can have a rubric, and the rubrics can have criterion that link to competencies. So you could see here that as part of the job of the CTDL is to link all of this data together, making it incredibly useful. So let's take a look at a couple of examples. I'm going to start with the American Association of Colleges and Universities Value Rubrics. And what I'm going to do is show you how it maps to the CTDL, and then we'll take a look at this rubric in the Credential Registry. And I know we have Kate with us. Kate, would you like to unmute and just say a couple of words about the value rubrics?
Yes, thank you so much, Jean. It's so nice to be here. And let me see if I could figure out where, I don't know that I can turn my camera off, so I apologize for that. So you guys are getting my slightly blonder headshot than what you would see in these days.
That's okay.
Thank you for this opportunity. So the value rubrics have been around since 2009. And like many higher ed organizations, we love acronyms. So value in and of itself is actually an acronym. The acronym stands for Valid Assessment of Learning in Undergraduate Education. What you see in front of you are what we now refer to as faculty-facing or educator-facing open educational resources. These value rubrics are available for free as downloads. We have them licensed through the Creative Commons, as you know, certainly many things with Credential Engine are. For folks to come to our website, download these rubrics and use them as they are configured, or take them, slice them, dice them, edit them to make them more specific to your individual curriculum, your context, your credential. Just to give you the highlights of things to know before you dive into them, these were written to help assess student learning across the totality of an undergraduate experience. So you will see development from level 1 benchmark to what we refer to as level 4 capstone. The language is ambitious, but it is intentionally so. So the idea is that you would see students progressing across their, 2, 4, or 6 years of an undergraduate experience. And folks do use this at both 2-year community colleges as well as 4-year institutions to really describe what we refer to as the list of essential learning outcomes. So when you think of the outcomes at kind of a 30,000-foot level that we expect of our educational experiences, it's everything from the usual suspects within general education, like critical thinking, written communication, quantitative literacy, to things focused more on personal and social responsibility, to one of my favorites, actually lifelong learning. So yes, there is a rubric and a way to measure lifelong learning. As I said, all of these are available for free. Our website has a ton of resources on how to use them, how to implement them, the psychometric properties, the kind of best pedagogical practices around it. And we're just very excited to see these included in the Credential Engine repositories, and hope that, if nothing else, they can be a jumping off point. As the conversation progresses, I'm going to mute. I might pepper the chat with a few links that would be helpful as you might want to engage. Liz Loop, thank you for asking that question. We are in the process of actually doing that right now. The question is, are they available in machine readable format? So we're working with some folks to make that happen. But
That's
in the
what the
meantime,
CTDL does. And now it is machine readable.
Well, and I will say, so that's fantastic. So with all of that said, I'll mute, I'll put some resources in the chat and keep an eye out for questions, but excited to turn it back over to Jean and let her carry on the conversation.
Thank you, Kate. Yeah, feel free to share in the chat. That would be fantastic. And that's what the CTDL is all about. It's human and machine readable. So we'll take a look at what this looks like in the Credential Finder, which is a tool for seeing the data in the registry. But behind that, it's actually the raw data for machines to use. And Nate Argo, part of our tech team, is going to talk a little bit and provide an example of what that can look like using that machine readable data. So this is to show you how the CTDL maps to the specific rubric. And based on what Kate was saying, I could think that there's some other CTDL terms that could be used that as additional descriptors. But I think this gives you a pretty good idea. What you're seeing here on the left are terms directly from the Credential Transparency Description Language for describing a rubric. Over here on the right, of course, we're seeing the rubric. So the rubric is the whole thing. The rubric as defined here that you see in this box on the right, that's the CTDL definition of a rubric. And we could see that these CTDL terms, what is the name of the rubric? What is the scope of the rubric? What is the description of it? What language is it in? What about the license to use it? What is the status of it? Where can I find it? What is the subject web page? And in our publishing system, through the bulk upload option, that's how this got published, our system will also apply a CTID, which is a unique global identifier that is very important for linking all of this data together and for literally being a unique global identifier for the rubric. So that's the description of the rubric. But now let's look at the parts of the rubric, because the parts of the rubric, you can see here on the screen, color-coded at the very top here, where it says benchmark 1, milestones 2, 3, and capstone 4. Those are rubric levels, rubric levels. And over here on the left, we have the rubric criterion. And we can have a name, we could have a description, and you can see, for example, here, acquiring competencies, taking risks, solving problems, embracing contradictions, and the description under these. This step refers to acquiring strategies and skills within a particular domain. That's the granularity of the data described in the CTDL. So in the CTDL, for that, whoever asked about that machine readable part of it, you'll be able to consume that data and understand what the levels are and what the criterion are. So now let's look at the other part of the rubric here in the middle. In the middle of the rubric, we have the criterion level. So again, this is the definition directly from the CTDL of a criterion level. And we can see here that we could use CTDL terms, including value, to get the value. So capstone is a value of 4. Milestones is a value of 3. And there's a 2 milestone, and then the benchmark is 1. And then we can get the benchmark text. So literally, we can get all of the pieces and parts of this rubric, publish it to the registry using the CTDL, and it will become human and machine readable. So let's see what that looks like. So this rubric, along with all of the value rubrics, is published to the Credential Registry. On the left-hand side here, we see the rubric mapping that I just showed you. On the right-hand side, we see that mapping of rubric level, rubric criterion, and criterion level. And this is how it displays in the credential finder. Now, in the registry, this is, of course, raw data. It's CTDL linked open data structure. But as Nate will demonstrate in a little bit, what you're seeing here on the right is that data is machine readable. So this display on the finder can basically, emulate the cells and the intersection of those cells where the values need to be and where the descriptions are. So you can see the granularity here covers all of the aspects of that rubric. And I want to point out over here that you can see CTIDs are also assigned. And we can drop that link in the chat, and anyone is welcome to take a look at that in the credential finder themselves, but this is an actual screenshot of what it looks like. To see, for those who are interested in the raw data that is machine readable, there is a link. If you click on the Details tab, you will see registry data. If you open that up, you can literally see the raw data in the registry. And again, here's the CTID for the rubric. Okay, let's look at another example. And I do believe we have Lori Dodge with us with Competency-Based Education Network. Lori, would you like to unmute and say a couple of things about the rubrics?
Yes, thank you, Jeannie. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay. Oh, great. So first I want to say thank you for this great opportunity. And I just wanted to share a little bit about the Competency-Based Education Network rubric that you see in front of you. This is a quality framework that CBEN, for those not familiar with CBEN, is a nonprofit organization of colleges and universities nationally and internationally that are deep in the work of competency-based education. Includes organizations, industries, individuals. What you see in front of you is one of the 8 elements of the quality framework. The quality framework was developed in 2017 by colleges and universities, program leaders that were building or had built competency-based education programs. The quality framework has, you're seeing an example of one, and this is the institutional commitment. The additional 7 elements of the quality framework include competencies, coherence, so how is the program connected, the assessments, no big surprise for those deep in CBE world, the intention of the program, how it was created with external stakeholders. Transparency is another element, so do learners and all audiences see what is expected in a CBE program? And the last is improvement. This is a great screenshot to see the pieces, and each of those 8 elements have a principal statement that is supported by your standards, which you'll see in the number 2. And then each of these have performance indicators that have both a criterion and the levels from initial to highly developed. This instrument was created by the colleges and universities, but then was vetted across organizations, accreditors, agencies, and then, you know, that input was taken in and improved. It is a tool that is used for institutions or others that are building CBE programs, be it from a certificate program, those smaller pieces of learning, through associate's, baccalaureate, or graduate. It was built to be agnostic to program design. We all know that CBE programs, everyone has a little bit different flavor. And so it's really a tool to assist in that building, sustaining, and growing programs. I'll put in the chat, I'll follow my colleague Kate. So you have access, it's publicly available. There's also a kind of a how to use it for those first starting out. So thank you, Jeannie. It's great to hear your voice.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. So glad you joined today. And I'm gonna do the same thing, and we're gonna do the anatomy of this particular rubric. And I want to point out, as you can see already, you know, from rubric to rubric, they can be very different. They're very different purposes, you know, different audiences for different reasons. And so these are just a couple of examples to show how CTDL covers these rubrics, even though they're very different. So no matter what the rubric is for, it can be published in the CTDL to be human and machine readable. So let's take a look at how the CTDL maps to this rubric here. So this is a rubric. We know who the creator and the publisher is. It is CBEN. We have the name of the rubric. We have a description of the rubric. This is was published with HAS criteria category set. These standards are actually linked from the rubric that we'll look at in the credential finder. It is in the language is English. If there was a license, then that license could also be linked, and we could always update it to include the license. The lifecycle status is active. There's a subject web page, a link to the web page. And when it was uploaded, we assigned a CTID, and you recall this is a unique global identifier. It is a very important property in the CTDL, and also the way that data gets linked together. So there's our rubric. And let's take a look at the other parts of the rubric. So at the very top of the rubric, we have the levels, the C for criteria, I for initial, E for emerging, D for developed, H for highly developed. So those are across the top. And on the left, we have the rubric criterion. So we can see that each criterion has a name, and we can get all the text that's in this criterion for this entire rubric. So we can cover the top of the rubric and this left side of the rubric. Now let's look in the middle of the rubric where the cells intersect. Those are the criterion levels. And those levels could have a value. And so the values that were assigned were 1 to 4. And an example is that a value of 1 could be that institutional leaders have been informed of a competency-based education program at the institution. So that's literally text verbatim from a criterion level. So each one of these cells at the intersection here have a criterion level. All that data is published to the registry. So you get that granularity of data in human and machine readable formats. And so we covered the rubric here on the left and on the right-hand side. And this is a screenshot from the same page. It would just be too tiny. to show, it wouldn't be readable if I just put the whole page on here. So this is all actually one page. And on the left, we're showing the description of the rubric. And remember, it has a category set, and those are those standards. And if I follow this link, or if you follow the link in the Finder, you're going to see all those standards. And over here on the right, we have our levels and criterion. So you could see that the raw data in the registry is used to render this. So you can see that the raw data in the registry has a granularity to be able to be utilized to get all the details of the rubric. So we can drop that link in the chat, and you can go ahead and take a look at what that looks like in the Credential Finder. And as I said, the Credential Finder is a tool for seeing all of the data published to the Credential Registry. When you go to the Credential Finder, you will see that there is a search menu. When you look at that search menu, everything on this menu is a top-level entity. Remember at the beginning of the presentation, the slide that I showed you with all the circles on it. These are the top-level classes, and they all have CTIDs, and they're all published to the registry. So this is published to the registry as human and machine readable data. And you can take a look at all of the CBEN rubrics associated with the document that Lori just talked about. You can see all of the value rubrics published to the Credential Registry. And they were all published using what we call the bulk upload that Julia is going to be demonstrating. So let's move on to data publishing and consuming options. And let me just pause here for a moment before I turn it over to Mike, just to check the chat really quick. I'm not seeing any questions. If anybody has any questions on what we just covered, feel free to let me know. If not, I'd like to turn it over to Mike. Mike, can you tell us about the publishing options? You are muted.
As soon as
Mike.
I take myself off mute, then I'll be happy to. Yes. So the Credential Engine has a credential publishing system for publishing data from the registry. The most recommended one certainly is using an API. That way, their partners are able to publish for themselves. So credreg.net has a page on how to use the API guide. It includes simple samples. We have very detailed samples that we keep in GitHub, much easier to maintain and demonstrate in GitHub versus on a web page. And as noted, the rubrics were done versus bulk upload. And our publishing system, we have for credentials and so on, manual editors, but the rubrics are a little bit more complicated. So for now, we just have the bulk upload option. And as Ginny noted, Julia will be having a demo of that in a moment.
Thank you, Mike. The main thing we want everyone to know that if you do have structured data, that we do have an option to directly publish to the registry via the API that Mike just talked about. It's called the Publishing Assistant API. And all the information about it is on our technical site. Again, no logins required, no membership required. This information is available for anyone. And before we get into the demo, I'm going to ask Nate to talk a little bit about consuming the data. It really got me excited to hear that somebody had asked about machine readable data. That is obviously right up our alley.
Yep.
Nate.
Yep. So there are a few primary ways that users can consume the data from the registry. The most direct one is just to get a record directly via CTID. There's no API key or login required for that. You would just put the URL in a browser if you want to look at it directly, or more likely retrieve it with whatever software you're using there. That's kind of the main way to get at data, but we also offer a search API that does require an API key and a login and whatnot. That's for looking at data in the registry, in particular for crawling connections from one piece of data to another, to another, to another, to enable you to find data that has a very specific sort of shape to it. We also offer various ways of downloading or importing the data for offline use within your system. We have several partners who prefer that option. And essentially what that does is allow you to download a snapshot of all of the data that's in the registry at the time of that download. And then we have ways of enabling you to periodically update that based on anything that's changed since then. That's usually for partners who are implementing their own system, their own search, or wanting to do some kind of research on the data or mix the data in with other data that they have in their system, use cases like that. And then last but not least, we have the Credential Finder. We looked at a few screenshots of that earlier. The Credential Finder is our way for looking at data in the registry. It's meant to give you kind of an idea of what a user-facing website might look like. We also offer widgets and things like that that allow you to customize what you would see in the Finder. We have some partners who utilize those as well. And this page here that we're seeing a screenshot of is essentially a proof of concept tool. It just demonstrates a real simplified version of what we saw in the Finder earlier, where essentially what it does is it will take a record of a rubric from the registry. It'll grab that record and anything that's related to it that needs to be downloaded there. It will then display that in a simple table format here. I'm not sure if you can tell from the screenshot, but there are labels for each one of the properties involved for things like the CTID, the name, the code annotation, things like that. And the purpose of this page is basically just to provide a very simple example of here's how you can take this raw JSON data from the registry and turn it into something that essentially looks like a rubric.
Thank you, Nate. It's really important to know that, we have the Credential Finder, the tool for seeing the data, but the registry data is really intended for others to use with their products, services, applications, and so forth. And it is in there as machine readable data. And this is a demonstration to show what you can do with the granularity of that rubric data to be able to get all the pieces and parts of a rubric, understand what they are, and even provide a visual representation of a rubric. So now let's go on to the bulk upload demonstration. Julia, take it away.
Awesome. So just to go over these steps really quickly, this is just an overview of the steps to bulk upload. You'll set up and log into your Credential Registry account. You'll use the bulk upload tool to get a CSV template, populate it, and upload it. You'll approve your rubrics, and then you'll see everything published to the Credential Registry via the Finder. And this is more in depth of the steps. You'll select the CTDL terms to include with your CSV template. You'll download the template, add your rubrics to the template, and then upload your rubrics. And then you'll approve your rubrics via your organization summary page. You'll select all and approve all selected items. And without further ado, I will share my screen and we can get more into this process. Awesome. So the first step is to log into the publisher. And once you're logged into the publisher, you'll see this navigation across the top. You'll select the Add New Bulk Upload dropdown from the top and click on the white link that says Rubrics under Bulk CSV Upload, and this will take you to the rubric section of the Bulk Upload tool. And once you're on the Bulk Upload tool, you'll see Select Your Organization at the top of the page. And if you're only associated with one organization in our system, your organization will be automatically selected here, and you won't need to select anything from the dropdown. But if you happen to be associated with multiple organizations in our system, you will need to select the appropriate organization from the dropdown. So I'm going to select the organization I'm going to upload data for, as I'm associated with multiple. And as you scroll down the page, you'll see an introduction with a brief overview of the steps to upload new rubrics, as well as the steps to update existing rubrics, should you need to edit any rubric data that you've already uploaded to the publisher. Over here, you'll see this print this page button, this print button, where you can print the steps to bulk upload should you need them. And just be sure to expand the sections you want to print first so that those are captured in the printed PDF. You'll also see the Contact Us button over here, and that will send us an email should you need help with the bulk upload tool. You continue down the page, you'll see this equity benchmark model right here. And this was developed based on the final report of the Equity Council. You'll see which properties on the bulk upload are part of which tier of the equity benchmark model based on the signal bars icon that is next to each property. And tier 1 properties are represented by a signal bars icon with 1 filled-in bar. Tier 2 properties display 2 filled-in bars, and tier 3 properties display 3 filled-in bars. Moving down the page, we'll come to step 1, which is to complete your organization. And if you expand this My Organizations tab, you'll see an edit button right here where you can make any changes to your organizational information. You'll also see your organization CTID, should you need it, in your bulk upload spreadsheet, and your organization's addresses. Moving down to step 2, this is where you'll select your properties to be included in your template. So you'll notice we have it selected to upload new rubrics for the purpose of this demo, but you can also update existing rubrics once the data is in the registry. And you'll see this required properties tab right here, which expands. And you'll see these properties are part of our minimum data policy and have been pre-selected for you. So they'll automatically be included in your spreadsheet when you download it. And since these properties are part of our minimum data policy and required to publish to the registry, they are also part of our tier 1 equity benchmark data. So you'll see the signals icon with 1 bar next to each property. And to run through the required properties quickly, you'll see external identifier, name, description, the type, subject web page, publisher, and language. And type actually allows you to upload rubric, rubric criterion, rubric level, and criterion level all in one spreadsheet to build out your rubric. And as I mentioned, these required properties are automatically selected, so there's no way to unselect these properties. So no need to worry about missing them from your spreadsheet. And looking at the minimum data, you'll see we have the property name in this column. We have a description of the property in this column, as well as an example of what data goes into that property. And we have the special data requirements on how to format the data in the spreadsheet. Now that we've gone over the required properties, we're going to go over some properties that are past our minimum data policy and are available for you to include in your rubrics upload under recommended benchmark properties. So we have audience level type. Here's audience type. It has rubric criterion, has rubric level, has scope. And you'll see each property has a description of what goes in that field, as well as an example, just like the required properties did. And there are some special data requirements with these properties. For example, instructional program type and occupation type should be a pipe separated list of values. And these properties also have a character limit. And you'll notice that none of the properties past the minimum required data have been selected, so you have the ability to scroll through and select additional properties to include in your spreadsheet. And moving on to more properties that are past the minimum data policy, you'll see we have a lot underneath here and that you're more than welcome to check out and add to your spreadsheet. Once you've selected all of your properties, you'll scroll down to step 3, where you'll download your template. And just be sure to include sample data and include instructions so that those will be included in the template for your reference. And you'll click the download template spreadsheet button. And the template will download to your desktop as a CSV file, and you can convert the CSV to an Excel doc or Google Sheet to easily input your data. So I'm just going to go to the bulk upload rubric spreadsheet that I've downloaded. You'll see sample data and instructions in rows 2 and 3, so you can reference them in the spreadsheet and you don't have to keep going back to the bulk upload page. And you'll see that in row 1, that all of these columns are the properties that were included in my spreadsheet. The minimum required data is included, as well as any other properties that I've checked off. So I'm going to go ahead and show you the completed spreadsheet where I've inputted all of the data I'd like to upload. You'll see we have rubric, rubric criterion, rubric level, and criterion level as types. And these external identifiers are referenced in columns N. Over here has criterion level. And we also have some benchmark levels in column K and values in column M over here. And once you're done filling out the template, you'll delete column A, as well as sample data and instructions in rows 2 and 3. And you can see that I've deleted both from this spreadsheet. And these need to be removed before upload or you'll receive an error. It's also important to note to save the file as a CSV file, as that is the file extension that works with our system. So I have a filled out bulk upload spreadsheet, and I'm going to go back to the bulk upload tool. And I'm just going to keep continuing down the page from where we left off. So we're at step 4 now, which has some helpful tips and tricks as you're inputting your data in your spreadsheet. I've already inputted my data, so I'll upload my data under step 5. So to upload your data, you'll select Choose File and choose the file from your desktop. And you can hit Preview. And this will replicate your spreadsheet. And you can use this as an opportunity to do a final quality check before uploading. And once you're done, you'll click Save this data to the publisher. And once you click that button, you'll see the system ask you if you want to upload the data. And this, we do have quite a few rows in this spreadsheet, so I'm not going to wait for it to upload all the way, but you will get a green success bar and a success message once everything is uploaded. And so now that we've uploaded our rubrics, the next step is to approve the data in the publisher. So under step 6, you'll see a link to your organization summary page. You'll click on the link and you'll be redirected to the summary page in the publisher, which I have open over here. And this is where you can see all of the data that you've uploaded to the publisher. You can see this account has a lot, as it's our testing account, but we have a rubrics tab right here. So you'll go to that tab and you'll see all of the rubrics data that you've uploaded to the publisher. You'll be able to see the name, the CTID, and the status of the rubric. So the final step here is to approve your data to be published. And so you'll select all, and you will select the green button at the bottom of the screen that says Approve All Selected Items. And that will let the publishing team know that you've approved your data to be published. And they will go in and do a quality check of the data you've approved and then publish your data to the registry. And then once your data is published, you'll be able to see it in the Finder, which I have open over here. And like Jeannie went over, you'll see in this example, there's a description right here. There's a subject web page right here, a life cycle status, and we have a rubric visualized right here. So the first column is the rubric criterion type in the bulk upload spreadsheet. We have the rubric levels up here, and we have criterion levels and values in the rubric itself. And that is how to upload rubrics, approve your data to be published, and view the data in the Finder. And if you have any questions or feedback, please feel free to contact the publishing team at publishing@credentialengine.org, and I will turn it back to Jeannie. Thank you all.
Thank you for that demonstration, Julia. That was really great. Let me go back to the deck. And we did have a question in the chat, and if someone doesn't mind grabbing the definition of benchmark level. And since we have a couple minutes and that question did come up, then I can back up. I'll just back up my slides real quick to that point in the presentation. Go here, I'm gonna go here where they had it. So I think maybe you were referring to the benchmark text. So
I think the question was in regard to the benchmark levels we have in like the bulk upload that show the like the Wi-Fi signal bars.
oh, those levels.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. They don't have anything to do with the rubric. Okay, gotcha. Those are recommendations from our equity task group or equity council, I should say, for recommended data include with information that you're publishing to the registry. So the little bars are meant to indicate tiers within that equity recommendation. And when you look at that web page, you'll see that there's a little table of contents, and it shows that there's a tier 1 bar, a tier 2 bars, and a tier 3 bars. Sorry, the language sounded like we were talking about a rubric. Okay, let me jump back to the end here of the presentation. Everything that you saw is available for you to utilize. The CTDL terms are available for anyone to use under a Creative Commons license. And as you just saw, the publishing system is fully supported for using the registry publishing API and publishing via what we call bulk upload. Then it's really a spreadsheet saved as a CSV file. And consuming that data. So that is human and machine readable data. The point of that data is to be consumed. And as we showed you, the granularity of the data is there to understand all the parts of a rubric. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I did have it right. Thanks. Thanks, Liza. Any other questions? If not, we thank you all for joining. The recording will be sent to everyone who registered. We'll also be posting it to our website, and it will be the recording will be available on YouTube as well. We hope to see you publishing or consuming rubrics soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.